Welcome back. All right, so let's talk about the Blues. Yep. So I talked about the Devils earlier. We'll talk about the Blues. The Blues going the other direction. So the Blues saw a 49-point improvement. The Blues dropped by 28 points, and I thought, well, with the right moves, maybe they could get back in the playoffs. But the way they've approached the offseason, it seems like they're deciding to do a bit of a retool here. We'll see. So the one exit of note, Thomas Greiss retires. So Hofer very likely to be the backup goaltender in St. Louis this season. Coming off of an 81-point season, there's obviously some question marks with the roster. One question mark is, can everybody stay healthy? That, of course, is going to be a question mark for a lot of teams in the league. So they have missed the playoffs rarely recently. However, 2010 and 2011, they missed the playoffs back to back. That was during a period where they missed the playoffs 5 out of 6 seasons. So the question becomes one of, so are they going to be going through this period for 5 or 6 years where maybe they're below average, or is this going to be just a couple of years? What's going to happen? Now, both their power play and their penalty kill were below average this season, so they want to improve that. And it's the first losing season they've had under Craig Berube. Berube does not enjoy losing, so I'm guessing that Berube will do whatever he has to do in order to turn things around. Now, we look at this forward group. You have Saad on the left side. You have Buchnevich. Now, Buchnevich only played 63 games this past season. 26 goals, 41 assists, 67 points. Really a solid season for Buchnevich. Again, if he played those extra 19 games, who knows, right? Jake Neighbors, good young forward. Does he get more opportunity this year? Probably. Sammy Blais, after being reacquired from the New York Rangers, turned things around. So Blais clearly enjoys being a member of the Blues. He's also a UFA this coming summer, so it's a show-me contract. And I hope he does. I hope he plays well and that he gets to stay in St. Louis because things really didn't work in New York. But as soon as he became a Blue again, it just worked. Nathan Walker, of course, still a member of this team, has been around for a while now. McGing. Matthew Pekka is there too. So Pekka, Walker, Blais, all three of them UFAs next summer. Matthew Pekka is one that maybe this is a year where he ends up breaking onto the roster, but in all likelihood he'll probably be playing in the AHL. Down the middle, this is pretty good, honestly. You've got Thomas, you've got Hayes. Hayes may end up playing on the wing, and Shen. And so, I mean, if that was your 1 through 3, that's not bad. This is a team that should win its share of games. I don't think the Blues are going to be a bad team necessarily. I think there's room here to bounce back a bit. But it's going to be interesting to see whether or not that does take place and how Kevin Hayes plays and whether or not he is putting up the kinds of points that he did a few years ago could go a long way to making things work for St. Louis. And again, Braden Shen, solid option for them. And so, yeah, I like their depth down the middle, even though for a fourth liner, could it be Alexandrov? Could it be Bitton? It could be somebody I have on the board here, too, as a winger. Ends up playing down the middle. Bolduc is there. Dean is there, a first-round pick from not that long ago. Abramov, and, of course, the recently signed Dvorsky. So their first-round pick from this year. In all likelihood, if he did make it onto the team, they would probably play him on one of the wings, I would think. And just looking at it, on the left-hand side, it would seem like that might be the best spot for him. Although on the right-hand side, there's some interesting opportunities there too. But down the middle, I don't think Dvorsky as a fourth-line center would necessarily be a fantastic move. And yet at the same time, we have seen where top draft picks or, top prospects will break into the league as a fourth liner, get their feet wet, and then move their way up the lineup. So we'll see. But he's one of those fascinating opportunities for the St. Louis team this year. Then on the right side, you've got Kyrou. Now, Kyrou, points-wise, not a bad year. 37 goals, 36 assists, 73 points in 79 games. His plus-minus was terrible. So this is where, the question about Kyrou and what kind of a forward he's going to be starts to emerge. I don't know that he's ever going to get any kind of a Selke voting presence. I don't think so, but he's a good scorer. I think he can hit 40 goals. If he can tidy up the defensive end a little bit, that would be great. We'll see how he does this year. Young forward struggling defensively, not that unusual, really, when you think about it. They got Kasperi Kapanen. He's a UFA next summer. Jacob Vrana is a UFA next summer as well. Vrana being able to stay healthy, that's been an issue during parts of his career, of course. So if he can stay healthy and if he can stay, on that straight and narrow, he could be a huge producer, really, for St. Louis. I think 25 goals is reasonable if he stays healthy, plays the whole season, and is with the right line mates. Yeah, I think 25 to 30 goals could be done by Vrana. Toropchenko is there as well. I like Toropchenko's work ethic. You've got Sundqvist that has returned to the team on a contract he signed a few days ago. So Sundqvist, it's a 1-year deal. He's a UFA next summer. There's a lot of forwards here that are, including Adam Gaudette. Yes, Adam Gaudette is with St. Louis now and re-signed to stay with the St. Louis Blues organization. So Gaudette's kind of a dark horse to maybe end up, and again, Gaudette has played down the middle. I guess you could consider him a dark horse for that fourth line center role. I don't think that happens, but again, training camp and preseason could change the story. McEachern returns as well. Mackenzie McEachern, depth forward, a guy who can clear waivers here and there if he needs to, and has played with the Blues previous. So we'll see how it goes for him. This is a good, not great forward group. Like, it's a good forward group. I like it, but is it tops in the division? Probably not. Is it a playoff roster? Well, we'll see. Because the question mark really is the blue line, right? The blue line this past season did not help out Jordan Binnington at all. There were a lot of backdoor goals, which means somebody lost their coverage, and it happened a lot. So the fact that there were a lot of defensive miscues for St. Louis drags them down. They sold at the deadline, which also caused them to lose some more games and dragged them down to that 81-point mark. I think realistically, I think they could hit 90 to 95 points this season, but a lot of that's going to depend on the blue line. Starting with Leddy. Parayko. Parayko, of course, I think they've been trying to move his contract. At least that's where I think we're at, but they've also been trying to move Krug. We know that Torrey Krug refused to waive his no-trade clause to go to Philadelphia. And in that deal, they would have gotten Sanheim back. At least that was the rumor, that Sanheim would be coming back. They were willing to take on Sanheim's contract. If they are still willing to take on Sanheim's contract, maybe Philadelphia finds a way to make that work, and maybe St. Louis isn't done yet in the offseason. However, while Krug had a rough season, both defensively and just in general, Falk, I thought, had a good year. 82 games, 11 goals, 39 assists, 50 points. So while the defense gets maligned a lot, and I totally understand why, I don't think that the blue line... I don't think that was on Falk. I think Falk was good. Then you've got Scandella. His contract expires this coming summer. Calle Rosen, his contract expires this summer as well. And Tyler Tucker is one of those ones that he's had some call-ups. There's a little bit of feistiness there. Tucker might be an interesting one to see what he can do if he gets an expanded role. And in the event of injury, maybe Tucker jumps in and does well. Bortuzzo's still there, veteran presence. His contract expires next summer as well. Perunovic, who it feels like we've been waiting on for a while. Kessel, not Phil Kessel. Kalynuk added as well in the offseason. He is a UFA next summer. He's been bouncing around a little bit now over the last couple of years. We'll see if he gets some games. And Josh Jacobs, who's on an expiring contract as well. So is there a good blue line here? I think there can be. I think this past season was a nightmare for their blue line, and the pride probably kicks in. I think there's very little chance they have that kind of porous season yet again, but that would be the determining factor, I think, as to whether or not they're in contention and they don't sell at the deadline, or if they're not in contention and they decide, yep, so sales are on. And if they decide to sell at the deadline, there are a lot of names on this board that could then be shipped out at that time. And then there's goaltending. This is one of the biggest divides on the internet. Is Jordan Binnington a good starting goaltender? And for me, I think it depends. It depends on the week. It depends on how things are going for him in that moment. His emotions can sometimes get the best of him. I don't think that he plays his best hockey when his emotions get the best of him. I think he plays his best hockey when he's not nervous, when he's not upset, and when he's in the net and he's doing his job, right? So when he's coming out and getting into little mix-ups and dust-ups with players from the other team, I don't think that's best for his game. There have been goaltenders that's part of their game, and you tick them off and they get better. I think of guys like Hextall, Billy Smith, another example of that. I think for Binnington, he's always going to have that temper, and I think that's fine. It's a matter of when that temper is used and to make sure that it doesn't cause his game to slip. So he had the .894 save percentage this past season, Hofer at a 905 save percentage. I think he's earned the right to be the backup. They've got Malcolm Subban there as insurance, and they've also got Ellis. So the depth in net is okay, but again, a lot of it is going to come down to Binnington, who, if Hofer is slowly brought in, that means Binnington plays 55 to 60 games in all likelihood. And again, we'll see how things go, right? Would Binnington have better numbers if he played more or not? And that's a debate that we may see go throughout the season. But for St. Louis, I don't know that I have them as a playoff team at this point, but they may not be done. As I said, they wanted the Kevin Hayes deal to be much bigger. They just couldn't get Krug to waive. My guess is that, now that it's kind of known that they kind of want, Krug traded potentially, maybe we see Krug get moved. But what do you think St. Louis does between now and the start of the season? Or do you think they're done? That's the question mark with almost all 32 teams right now. Are they done? There are some teams that clearly are not, but it might be quite a while before we see things change. It can be in September. It can be early October. I know all the career videos I do, I'm always kind of a little bit surprised anyways at how many of them get traded just before the season starts. But maybe that happens with St. Louis too. Let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.